Hey, Tkinter. Okay, so as part of this section, we are seeing how to um, build the front-end application uh, and how to integrate the front-end application with Django REST framework. So just to recollect, so this is the final output. This is what we are trying to achieve as part of this um, part 2. Um, Before that, I just want to recollect what we are done so far in the first part. So we created the backend folder and we created the project called Hotel Management, and we created the separate app called Hotel, and we installed a couple of packages like REST framework and integrate that API with the serializers. We just created the required serializer for list, create, detail. On top of that, we used the view, basically view to delete the, to handle the update, delete, all the CRUD operations. So I think it's pretty much that's what we covered so far in part 1. So now we're gonna see the front-end portion, but before jumping to the front-end portion, we just want to make sure how we can test it out to create the so we created the CRUD operation, but we nowhere we haven't used so far about how we can authenticate our system. When I say authenticate, it should be how we can log in from the front-end application. So we have to think about those part as well, right? So at the moment, let me run the server. You can see in live what I'm trying to say here. Okay, it's running. Okay, so for we have the list API, and if I go to the one and I can able to edit, and I can simply go for create, just like this, to create the new room. That's our project. So here there is no option to as a front end. I mean, if you see here, I don't have any login users, right? So let me quickly log in into admin. I think what password I kept, believe. Should be this one, I think. What password I created? I think 1, 2, 3. Yes. So the password is just to make sure. Let me note it down here so that I won't forget. Password is Tkinter at 23. Okay, so now we logged into the admin portal, but as you see, if I refresh the page, I should see the username. But we need to think about how the front-end application option to log in, right? That portion, it's a question how we're going to integrate that. Maybe we can hold that part for a moment, and let's start designing the front-end part. Maybe once we start working on the front-end logic, we will supposed to understand what will be the best approach or what will be the right way to handle it. Communication. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create what's called the folder called here new folder, called the front end, and the front end portion I'm going to create the file called app.py, because as I'm going to build the front end using Tkinter, of course you can use PyQt5. It's a library, you can use that, but just for a demo purpose, to trying to understand how we can integrate that operation, I think it should be fine to use Tkinter. So first thing first, we have to import Tkinter. Tkinter import start. Basically, I want to import everything, as well as some important modules like my page box. So I think these should be the two objects or two library modules we have to import. This for us to handle the Tkinter modules. As in Tkinter, this module, when we have to deal everything as a object or as a window object, like in our web application, we have to say about like model, and the top of the model we are handling list and serializer, those stuff pretty much right. As a front end developer, as a web developer, they should have about those stuff. As a desktop application designer, so they will deal everything as a object, a window objects, or a graphical user interface kind of stuff. So in order to initiate the Tkinter, I just had to use like this, and so this will initialize the window of the objects, basically the main window to handle it. And I want to provide the title for that window. Say this is regarding to hotel management, so I'm going to keep this a hotel management. And so next thing is, we want to think about when we open the application, what will be the size of that interface or resolution of the interface, right? Let's say if I open this application, Visual Studio, it will take my entire front desktop application. It should be minus 1920 into 1024 kind of pixel. So it occupies everything if I maximize, right? So likewise, we have to think about when I open the application, what is my starting position? It's whether I should start from here, or or from the bottom, or from middle of the screen, or what is the size width of the interface. So that has to deal using geometry. So for our purpose, I'm gonna stick with 750 EX. It's not a into. It's not multiplication. It's X. Width and height. It's a kind of resolution. Just want to use for this. And so in order to handle everything just like this, let me okay, in order to run this, let me open another terminal. Let my terminal like this. Chrome, it's activating. Okay, I have this my permission issues. I used to run this command. So clear. So let me activate my virtual environment, and then navigate to my front end folder. Okay, let me save this. Let's run this file. Okay, as you see, we have a couple of lines in this code, but still it doesn't throw any error, but doesn't also show the front-end interface. That is because we initiate the Tkinter main window, but there is no option. We haven't mentioned about what's the point of, where is the point of executing that process. So we have to use app.main loop. So this is the starting point of our program to execute the interface. Now if I save this, I run now, I should see this screen like this. So hotel management, so this is the resolution. If I close this, if I change this to something like 150, let's assume. If I run this, now you can see it increased the height but not the width. So basically this is the width and height. Cool. So at least we build the skeleton of our interface. So next step is we have to think about handling each individual box, right? As you let me I think it should be okay. Let 1 second. I want to show you. Let me take the screenshot of the final outcome so that we can design based on it. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to snippy. This is my tool. Somehow my system is very slow. Okay, so let me take this screenshot. Okay, so this is the final outcome. So we can have this as a reference and we can start building our front-end application. Okay, as you see here, we do have a text labels. It's called label and room number, guest, and each label which is referring to the corresponding text box, so that the front-end user they can able to navigate to the respective text box with a respective label. And this is the place where basically highlighter. So basically, this is the place where landing all the available rooms, basically list view, and this is the place where we have to log in with our users and add room, delete everything. So let's try to start building this portion first. So this portion first. Okay. So once we initiate the class object here, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this for room. So basically, to get the room objects, room text equal to string variable. So basically, this variable which will hold only the string data from the user interface. Basically, whenever the user is typing something or holding the data based on the string data, that's what about string variables here. And then I can say room label equal to label, because we are going to give a label, and this object we have to refer here as because this is the window, main window, we're going to place this room label or the room boxes. and I'm going to give a text name. So this is the text name. The room number, guest, everything is a text name here. So label with a text name called room number, and also I want to have this should be bold, and this is a couple of properties. This thing designing property, you can always refer this the Tkinter documentation for more references. You can play around with that, but this I want to stick with the some basic properties, and also I want to have some padding in y-axis. So if you see for the label and text boxes, we have some spaces around y-axis. That's what here this is all about. Okay, so we created the label, but let's try to run whether we are getting anything or not. Nothing. That is strange. That is because we created the label, but nowhere we are not mentioning about the where we have to pack that entire variables into a. You can use pack object or method. You can use that is a still it's a out of the box in Tkinter, or you can use the grid option. I prefer to go with the grid because the grid is pretty useful when you want to align the object, something like this. If you see, it's it is taking as a grid, right, in Excel sheet, rows and columns. That's what all about grid. You can design your main window and pack that main window in a grid, and you can assign the rows and columns according to the grid. We'll see in action in just a moment. Okay, so we created label. Now it's time to pack that label in a grid. So I'm using grid. Of course, you can use pack method also, but I want to stick with grid here. So I want to start with a row 0. Let me run this. Okay. So this is the row, and this is the column. So row 0 means it will start from the top left corner of the window of the interface. So what I'm going to do is room and column equal to 1. So basically in the row 0 and column 1, I want to fix this label over there. So if I refresh this, if I open now, I should see the 0th row and the first column. We have that value label. Pretty cool, right? Now we can start writing our text box. So here, text box, we have to use entry class to use for text box. It has to assign with this object instance, and here we have to assign this text box to what type of text box it is, whether it is in web application, used to say, right, let's say just submit or type or a date kind of stuff, right? Pretty much same thing. So text variable equal to, you have to assign this room text. Just like this. What is the next step? Maybe you can should know by this time, right? So we have to tag that entry box. basically pack that text box just like this label what we did before. So room entry dot grid and so row column equal to 1. So just save this and see what it looks like. Sorry, we have to provide row equal to 0. Where is my label? Okay, so the reason is when you start assigning the same row on the same value, the label got overwritten with the entry box. So in order to fix that value on the same position, we have to use sticky W, and if I open now, it's not small w, it should be capital. This looks strange, right? So fixed with. Still I'm seeing the same issue. What would be the reason? Reason is I use the same column, right? So this should be column 0 and this should be column 1. I think it should be, yes, there we go, right? Now we have this label and text box with the first portion. Cool. What else next? So now we can think about copying the same stuff for handling guest, because that is our next box here, guest, right? So we can name it as guest, and there should be same string variable, because though we are going to pass as a number like admin user ID, but I just want to stick with the string variable just for the main purpose of this video is to show how to integrate Django REST framework with this front-end guys, not showing the actual design itself. So let's stick with string for time being, and we can have this as a bold. We can remove this padding. I don't want to padding on the front-end side. I mean, basically y-axis I don't want. So I need to change my name. So this should be guest label, and this should be guest label. Now you can think of, it should be in row 0. It should be in row 0, but it's in column 1, right? So column 1 is already used for row entry. So now it's time to use column 2 so that it will look for, it will place the text box in 0th row, first column here, and second column here, right? So it should be 2. And my text variable is here, and this should be my room entry, not, this should be guest entry, and guest entry should be this one, and this position should be 3, right? Because 0, 1, 2, 3, this exposes 3. Save this file and run. Wow, we have a beautiful landing page, right? It's not super duper cool, but it is at least we will play around with some kind of data, right? Fine. Okay, now pretty much same stuff. We can copy all this for check-in and check-out. Check-in date, and this should be check-out date. So that should be in row 1 because this is row 0 and this is row 1, right? This is a column 0, column 1, column 2, column 3, and just like that. So check-in date should be what you call the check-in. Though we have a date is not a straightforward option in Tkinter. We have to do some custom approach. So that I just stick with a string variable to demonstrate purpose. Okay, check-in text, and this should be check-in date, right? Should be check-in date, and let's stick with bold 14, and this should be column 1, and so row 1, column 0, right? Because row 1, column 0, yeah, and this should be check-in label, and this should be check-in label, right? And for guest entry, it should be same like check-in entry, and this should be also check-in entry. This check-in text has to be replaced with guest text. I hope by this time, you guys, I'm going a little bit fast because I'm just copy paste with relevant data. I hope you guys understand what I'm doing here. If not, let me know the section. We can maybe try to explain in upcoming videos in slow manner. If you guys are really interested. Okay, let's. I think it should be okay, but this one has to change with a column row 1 and column 1, right? And this is checkout. Pretty much I'm going to copy everything. Checkout, replace my guest with checkout date. And this has to take place here. And this should be checkout date. So checkout date. And this should be row 1, right? Because this is row 1. Column 2, and this is row 1, column 3. Perfect. I think okay. Let's try to run. Yeah. So skeleton looks nice, I think. So now let's think about having this list box with a scroll down option. So what I'm going to do is we can have the name like something called room details list box. So here we can have the room list, and we have to use the list box class. It should be like this. It had to use the object instance. I want to have my height is 8 and width equal to 50 and border equal to 1. We're just designing the skeleton of this box. We're we're not handling the logic. We have to handle the logic later, but just want to fill the design first, and then we can like to work on the individual logic. So this is a way to create the list box. Of course, once you create the list box, next option is we have to pack that, right? So in order to pack it, you have to use grid option, and should be in row 2, and column 0 and column span. So basically column span is the width of this list box. So column span is 3 and row span 6. How many number of rows we can accommodate in that, and padding is padding y-axis and padding x-axis, let's say 20. So let's see how it looks like. Syntax error, yes, I have to use comma. Okay, so this is pretty much same like this, right? Cool. So this is the row 0, 1 to second row, and we are giving some padding between the surrounding this area. That's why we are seeing some spaces between the table. That's super cool. Now, so handling the scroll bar option is a little tricky in Tkinter. If you're familiar with the PyQt, you just drag and drop everything. You have to handle that stuff. But here we have to write everything as a code, as a Tkinter perspective. So let's create a scroll bar now. Scroll bar. And this has to be inherit from this scroll bar app method. So, and then the scroll bar has to be packed, which means in our grid, right? In grid, let's say in row 3 and in column 3. Okay, if I now I should see this scroll bar. Nothing right now. It's just a scroll bar kind of picture. Doesn't have any functionality. We have to integrate this list box with our list box with the scroll bar option. So basically, this list box has to bind with this scroll bar. So we have to write the binding function, and later we have to assign the data into list box. So the next step is, now we have to configure our list box, room list, right? This is a list box. And configure. So when you deal with the list box, right, you have to scroll up and scroll down. It's based on the command, right? Scroll up and scroll. It's like x-axis and the y-axis, scroll up and scroll down. So here we do have an option called y scroll command. Y scroll command equal to scroll bar dot set, which is available in this object instance. And then we have to assign scroll bar dot configure some command that we have to deal. So I think it should be basically, it has to be some kind of event interaction. So we have to call the function command. So command equal to the command looks weird when you see the Tkinter the first time, but when you used to work on the Tkinter, be very familiar with what I'm doing right now. But just stick with the command, whatever we used to have, is supposed to have here, right? And basically, we'll much focus on the logic behind the scene, but this command we have to use just like this. So room list So basically, we have to append the or bind the action on the scroll bar. Hey, whenever the list box is here, I need to use this list box in my scroll bar and use this y-axis view. Cool. And finally, we have to bind this option. Bind using the list box. So list box select. So whenever we select the list box, it has to do some kind of event and actions, right? So just just assign this as a retrieve or select item, something like that. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, this is the function. Whenever we scroll down the list box or select the list box item, it has to perform some kind of action. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create the function for time being, and just give it as pass. Now let's execute, and we should see same thing. Cool. Right. Now what we have to do, we need to have this username, password, and all the buttons should be also available, right? So let's work on the buttons. Sorry, the username and password. I'm going to copy paste a couple of code here, and I'll go line by line, and I'm going to paste it here and name it as username and password. Okay, so this is pretty much same what we did so far. Like, we created a text label, data type variable, and created the label and assigned to the given rows and columns for the entry box. Same thing, I did same thing here for username. Created the username here and assigned the label and given rows and columns. The 0th row and 8th column, right? The 0th row and 8th column. Based on your user interface, you can this may varies. The column and row should be varies, but as we stick with the 750 resolution, I think it should be fine. We can go with the same grid metrics like this. And one more function I used here is, I want to have that my background color of this text is red color, so that user can differentiate, hey, this has to log in before we have to do some kind of any operation here. So I just give fg equal to red, and likewise same for password. And one more option which I use is show equal to asterisk. Basically, when you type something in a password, we should hide the data, right? If I get rid of this, now we can see what will happen, right? If I type something, it's typing the actual data. So I don't want to have, or somebody don't want to see what the password is, right? So in order to handle that, we have to provide this show equal to star. So if I run this again, and I can see it changed to star, right? This is super simple. So far we designed the label, list boxes, and text boxes. Now it's time to handle the buttons. So button is super simple. So I'm gonna start with my login button first. A login button equal to the button class Cache from app. Text should be pretty much login, and I want to have color is red and width equal to 15. Now, so any kind of button or any objects or widgets we're creating here, we have to pack, right? So login button dot grid should be in row 2 and column 9 and some spaces. Now if I run this, okay, it should be text. Press this. Oh, wow, we created our first button. You can see some spaces, right? That's because of the tag UI, and you can see this have login button. Right now, we won't do any action because we have to bind the action in the given button. That will do later. So let's create the same button for all the add room, clear button, everything. So I'm going to copy some of the code here. Let's paste it here. So like add button is going to add room and assign to that grid, and remove button is going to be delete the room object from the Django database. Sorry, not Django model. And I want to get rid of this because I want to, it's something we haven't done yet. Okay, so for update button should be updating the data, and clear the form. Like in our Django application, when you submit the form, it clears the form, right? Form.clear concept. This is a pretty much something in clear button. So just run this app and see how the application looks like. This is the application design interface so far. Wow, we did our first user interface. We haven't done our logic, but at least we build our prototype skeleton, right? Doesn't have any function. Okay, now let's work on the functionality. So which is very easy here. So let's start with the clear button and then start working on login, add room, etc. Super exciting, guys. Let's see. So in order to work with the button, so you have to assign the function to the given button. So each button is a kind of function behind the scene. So as we're going to start with the clear button, so going down here, so there is a argument called command. This is nothing but, hey, whenever clicked on the button, call this function and perform some logic behind the scene, right? So that's the way to handle it. So let's take clear form, something like that. Let's have clear form. So we have to create clear form just like this to clear the data from the form, right? So basically, when we type something and if something wrong, we want to clear the data entire form, right? So this is clear the button, it will get rid of all the data from all the text box. So in order to handle that, so we have to grab each entry data from the entry variable and then delete the data, right? So So what are the entry we have? We have room entry, guest entry, check-in date entry, checkout entry. We don't want to clear this login credential, but rather we want to clear only these forms. So in order to read the data, so we have to use room entry because that is where we have this data storing. That is where the user will write the data or enter the data. So room entry dot delete, and starting from 0, let's say he's typing something called cancel. So the first letter starts with the 0th position called C until the last line L. So basically we have to get rid of all the characters or words in this text box. So we have to use en function like this. Just try it out. So as of now we have only for room entry, right? I'm typing something. If I clear, you can see it's cleared the data from the room number. Awesome, right? At the same time, if I get rid of this n, let's see what will happen. Type something clear. It's clear the first position on. So that is the reason we have to use this end. Okay. Likewise, we have to use for guest entry dot delete 0 n and check-in entry dot delete 0 and end and checkout entry dot delete 0 and end. Cool. Now if I refresh, run the program, clear, it cleared everything. Wow, this is the logic behind each individual button. We're going to do that. Okay, now let's work on login. So this is going to be a more interesting stuff, guys. Let's focus. Okay, so I'm gonna call this button here and name it as called login. Right, that is the more appropriate name for login, right? So now we have to think about how we can handle it. Once the login has been clicked, it has to read the data, username and password from the entry box and pass the username and password to our Django REST framework and make sure it is authenticated, and then we have to retrieve the data in the list box, all the list of rooms. Basically, from this data has to be. I stopped the server. Let me start it back. So basically, it has to list down all the available or booked rooms so far. Okay, so how can we achieve this? Let's create the login button function here. Login, and we'll take nothing an argument and pass for a moment. Okay, so how can we send this username? We can send a username and password, but how can we authenticate? If you are in Django has a session kind of authentication, right? So we will log in username and password. Also, by default, Django has sent the CSRF token to handle everything. But how can we achieve here? Of course, you can use the request method Python request method and generate the CSRF token by using session cookies. Um, just like this. Just want to show you guys something. Yeah, so you can use Python request option and pass that request session and get the client login URL, and you can use session cookies to handle it. But that is not a right approach, right? Because we are software engineer, we have to go in a smart approach, right? So that is where this token concept will come into the picture. Now think about something like this. If you provide the username and password, if Django REST framework generate the token for the current shell which we shared, and using the current shell we can do all kind of operation until the token expires, right? That sounds interesting, and also it's more robustic and more secure feature. Rather, as long as the token expires, we can use that all operation. So for this demo purpose, we're going to stick with static token generation. We're not going with creating the dynamic one. So what we can do is, we can, in the Django REST framework, we can create the token using the Python manage by command, just like this. So as you remember, we created the password for admin is Tkin123, right? So with this, we cannot get we're not able to handle all the front-end application. So the reason behind is we need to generate some kind of token, use the token for our operation begin in our interface. So this is one of the commands we can create the token manually. This, of course, is available in Django REST framework documentation. You can refer it. But I'm gonna create just like this. So let's create. Oh, okay. In order to handle it, we have to use the default. We have to add the Django REST framework auth token in our settings file. So if you remember, we just added only the REST framework, but we haven't added the REST framework auth token. So REST framework dot auth token, just like that, and this will create a. So we have to run our migration or to create some token table in backend. So let's migrate. Sorry, let's migrate. You see, it's created auth token, some kind of table. If we go back to admin and if I refresh, oh sorry, we have to run it. You should see the token table, tokens, right? Right now we don't have any tokens, so now we're going to create a new token for admin, because that is the only user we have at the moment. So I'm going to create, so this is the token. So let's copy this token somewhere so that we can use it in our application. Okay, now run our server. Back here and should see the new token for admin user. Wow, super cool. Now we have to test it out before apply this logic into our front-end application. There should be we have to think about the option to test the application, test the login authentication, right? So you can use HTTP PY method, or you can use import request or a Python request package. But I'm going to use the default option called HTTP within Visual Studio Code. Use code. Okay, so now the first step is just want to make sure if I send the token to my list API, is it sending response back or not? All right. So let's create GET request, because we're going to send a GET request HTTP localhost. The port is 8000. That is where the port is the server is running, and the /API. That is a list API, right? And the content type, it should be JSON, because I want in JSON. And now we need to pass the token in the header portion. So that's why we are giving in the header portion here. So authorization. So this is the way we need to pass the token to the REST framework to access the data. So the token which we created just before. So this one, copy that and paste it and save this. Now if we send the request, you should see the data. 1, 2, 3, super, right? So the same set of data we are getting here. So this is one of the approach we can validate our request or validate our API token. Now let's try to try to send the post request. So post, I'm going to copy this post request. Let's say this for post room data. Okay, name it as. And content type, same thing, application JSON. And I'm going to copy this. Basically, let's copy this so that. So change this to post. So the post data should be under create, right? This method, this endpoint. So we have to provide create and the data. So data, as we are going to send in a JSON format, so we have to provide like this. And in our case, it's a room number, right? So just copy this stuff. So room number is, let's say, something 8, and guest is admin. Just stick with simple. Why I'm not able to have that option? Not sure. After I commented, maybe this should not be the issue. Comment. Yeah. Okay, so what should I expect is it should create this data in our room data model. So let's send the post request on this endpoint. Post is successful. Yes, it's created 210 created, which means it's successful. So whatever the code which is starting from 2002 less than 299 should be a successful state, I believe. So if you go to list API and refresh, and should see the room number is 8. Wow, that's super cool. Now it's time to update. Let's use put command. Put command is for update, right? So the same room number, but instead of checking June, I want to check in July. So go to change July. So for update, right? That is what put command update, sending the update request. So it's a put command. So just send the put request. You can see error. So method is not allowed on this method, right? Because it should be the option. So create URL doesn't have a put method. So we have to provide the update endpoint, right? So edit endpoint. So we have to provide the endpoint like this. Sorry. Right? So in our case, the ID is 4. That's the room number 8. Right? ID number 4. So we have to pass the URL like API 4 and edit. That is the URL we have given in our API for edit, primary key and edit. Right? So we have to provide like that 4, 8 and edit. This is for put request. So we save this. Now if it's in, I don't have any error in the output, and it's changed to 20 July. And if I list API, I should see July. Yeah, perfect. Now we can also, last operation we can write out as delete. Delete also the same URL, but it is delete, right? Because if you go back to your URL, that is a URL, delete. And get off this, delete. So delete doesn't require to send the data. It has to just provide delete method. So we have to provide the which ID we have to delete, and just like this authorization token, send. It should have 201 or 204, something like that. Yes, no content. If I refresh this API, now I should only have 2 rows. Cool. So our token mechanism is perfectly working without any issue. Now we can apply this approach to log in our app. All right, just save this file. We can refer this later. I'm going to close this file and get rid of this. Okay, now we can write. I hope you guys understand the token creation, the reason for token creation, and how to validate the various thread operation. So I'm gonna assign the things like this video going a little bit longer. So username entry, that is where we will get the username here, right? Username entry. So to get the data, we have to use the script method from the text box. Like a password, password entry dot get, and let's print out username and password. Okay. Admin password is Tkion, right? Tkion at 123. Print. Cool. Right? This is the option to get the value. Okay. Now what we can do is we don't want to have the password username should be empty, right? So we can have username should not is empty, or password is empty. Then we have to throw an error message box dot show error. This is an option method to, because we already imported from here, show error, and say required fields. Let's copy the some code from here. Should not be empty. So let me run this. If I try to log in, see, user name password should not be empty. That is what we are given on our error code. Yes, you can, of course, you can do it in many ways, guys. But for simplicity, I just want to use if else with the respective data. So I'm going to pass the data to get the token, right? So we have to pass the username and password and get the token. So, okay, so I forgot to tell you the other option, how to get the token, right? So we have to, I think we have to use one of the default out-of-the-box option in REST framework called app API auth token that has to be configured in URL file. So let's take a look. So in our hotel management project, go to the URL file, and should be here. So comma path API. You can provide whatever the URL you want, but this is the default by the documentation. So this is required. The reason why I'm adding this URL is when we have to get the token, right? So we have to use, whenever the username and password somebody is providing the front end, we're going to do all kind of operation based on token, but we need a token, right? So in order to get the token, we have to use this from the REST framework out of the box. So REST framework dot auth token import views, and this views dot obtain auth token, and you can name it as called API token auth, whatever you want, right? So we can test it out this as well. So token auth, and this should be it should be our post request, but in order to send the post request, we need data, right? So one thing is username is admin and password. This is the default user auth model fields, guys. That's why I'm using username password. If you have a customized user data model, auth model, you can obviously have to use that field name. And our password is sticky on. If I send the post request, I should get the token. Cool. This is the same token we used here. So now, jumping back to our app, we have to pass the data, right? So we have to use the username, which is the username we get from the text box, the password, and should be from password. And in order to send a post request, we need to use the request package from Python, and Now let's try this try exception. Request, let's say response. Let's have response equal to request dot post. I assume you guys have a familiar with the request package. So here we have to use the URL. So let's say our login URL is called URL. Have this this is our URL, right? So stick with that, and we can use URL and plus we have to provide API auth token, right? What is the token? Sorry, token auth. Copy this part and just like that. We have to pass the data equal to the data, and just print the response. If it is any failure, can have it as exception, and we can have some kind of error like this. So login failure. So let's try this module. Oh, we don't have a module. Let's install request. Okay, so while loading, what we are trying to do is we try to grab the username and password from the text box and sending the post request using the request package to the auth token which we have created, the URL, and get the token. If we have the token, then we can do all the operation based on the token, which is basically authentication, right? See, why it is taking very long time? Come on, my internet is super slow, guys, today. Okay, something struggling a lot. Okay, let's see. Let's see what is the output of the response. So we can use the content in the status. It should be, we're expecting the status should be greater than 200, less than 299, right? So let's see. Now run the app. Provide the username and password. If you on at 123. Response 200, guys. So yeah, perfect. So it's working. Cool. So now we have to get the token, right? So in order to get the token, so let's have that the variable. We have to use JSON. Then we have to import JSON first. JSON loads and response dot text, and from the token out, I'm going to read the dictionary because this will send out the dictionary data. From the dictionary data, it should have token. So we can see that in print here and print token. Okay. If I save this, if I run, 23. Login. Unable to log in with provided credential. Invalid login. Oh, okay. This one is a small t, right? Should be capital T. Maybe it's getting okay. Admin capital T take on 23. Wow. Token, it's created the token. Right? So the reason we get the failure is it doesn't have the token out variable. So it should be token out. Okay, so super simple, right? So we created the first integration, how to get the token, and also we used how to get the data, right, from the backend. So now the requirement is once the user is logged in here, it has to retrieve the data and place it in the list box, right? So let's have the list box option. So it can name it as you can name it as retrieve list and so thing is once the user is logged in, then we need to use the token. Use the token, we have to retrieve the data from the API endpoint, right? So we need a token here. How can we pass the token from one function to another function, right? So this is where we have to think about the Python global, right? So we have to where it is the function login function here. So we have to use the global function to pass this variable, the output of the token. So using this global token out, now it is exposed to all the outside of this function as well, right? So that's why we have to use this global option. Now we have to use this token out as exist. Then we have to pass that in headers because that is what we used in get request is a header method, right? So we have to use header equal to authorization, right? So that is we copy, we use here authorization. So provide authorization and I use f token, f variable token space this field value, token value. So space and it is token out, right? And it is a get request, should be or request dot get, and it is the URL, right? It has to be the URL and with the API because that is our list API URL because we're going to retrieve the data, list the data, right? So and I have to pass the headers equal to headers and this will return the data in a JSON format, so or dictionary format. So I have to use JSON dot loads just text and let's print out data. Let's see what will happen. Now it's open. Token is received. It sent the post token, but doesn't perform any retrieve data, right? That is the reason, because once the login is completed, executed, we had to execute this retrieve function. So just like this, so that this will, once the login is valid, and it will start executing this function. So let's run this again. And admin Tkinter at 123 login. Wow, the same data which is available here. Pretty cool. So now we have to think about how we can place that file in the data, the list box, right? So first of all, we have to read the data in a list box or list array, and then append the data into that label. So for, let me create the empty array or list. For out in out data, I want to list only the rows, something like that. That's the reason I am using this approach. Of course, it can have in various options. So I want to retrieve only values. Basically, this one guessed from all the available dictionary, and then append that into again the rest. So this will look like this if I append the data. Let's see what will happen. Okay, so this is the first JSON dump, but we're looking for after the unpack the list, or unpack this first list. Okay, I think pretty much the same thing. Okay, now where is the list box? The list box here. So we want to append that value here, right? So in order to do that, we have to write, because we have to append one by one. So k data, so the variable called room list, and like we saw delete, right, here, the method. So pretty much we have to use like insert in order to add the data, and starting from the end position, because think about after we insert that first data like this, the next row should be start from the next line, end line, right? Should be start from next line. So in order to handle that, we have to use end method, label and k, and insert line. So basically after the every end of the line, insert the new row. Now let's see what will happen. See, wow, super simple, right? So I think this is taking a little longer, guys. I think maybe other these three options we'll see in next video. Until then, maybe one more point I want to show you guys. So if you have any doubt here on our topic or any suggestion, of course you can go to our Techie, and you can use developer support portal. And recently we introduced the point concept. Basically, so you guys can help others on answering the question. Um, on top of that, you will get the points, and finally you can use the points as a convert as a dollar amount. So helping others plus earning option is always is a good option, right? Like we used to go for Stack Overflow everything, but pretty much Stack Overflow kind of stuff. But along with that, we're gonna earn when when we answer or when we're helping other developers when they stuck on something else. Like if you see this user got some point, and of course this point will convert as a dollar later. I just want to show you this guys as well. Maybe if you are interested to help others, you can always use this portal. Of course, you can have all the regular post and videos, project, everything here. Okay, see you next video, guys. Thank you.